Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Leeds series. The City of Leeds is one of the 5 metropolitan boroughs of West Yorkshire. 38 civil parishes lie within its boundaries. Which slice of the city are we seeing today? Welcome back to the City of Leeds, everybody. Now today I've got a place once again that stands on the banks of the River Wharfe, the southern bank of the River Wharfe to be more precise, and it's got a water related name as well. This has a long-winded title, but it's often referred to by its shorter name, and in fact the name of the parish is just that shorter name. This is Pool. This Leeds video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Pool-in-Wharfedale, which is usually abbreviated to Pool. This is the first time on the channel we've touched a village on the outskirts of Otley. This can be found in the Lower Wharfedale area, 10 miles north of Leeds, 11 miles northeast of Bradford and 2 miles east of Otley, whilst still remaining within the City of Leeds metropolitan borough. Pool is a scenic riverside village, one that's very popular with locals and with tourists alike. It's got a lot to offer, including the amazing Pool Bridge, the gorgeous River Wharfe and lots of local history. The village enjoys views in most directions, views which include the Chevin, the Arthington Viaduct and Almscliffe Crag, a rocky outcrop in a Leeds parish we've yet to cover. The village amenities include one pub, a post office, a garage, one primary school, a petrol station, a sports and social club with a bar and the village hall. It also has 2 parks and miles of riverside walks. Industrially, Pool was important for milling. There were many types of mill here and in fact some still exist. The name William Whiteley was quite important here as a result. Keep him in mind. It was also on a turnpike, and there are some signs of that around, including an old toll bar and the Tour de Yorkshire stage from Leeds to Harrogate passed through the village in 2014. There's a lot here, so let's go and check it out. Our trip around Pool begins at the Church of St Wilfrid, right in the centre of the village. This was rebuilt in 1839 on the site of a chapel of ease, its architect being Robert Dennis Chantrell. Chantrell originally came from Surrey, but his best known work is in Leeds. He's the man responsible for designing Leeds Minster. In 1819, Chantrell also won a competition to build Leeds public baths. Pool's War Memorial is in a circular enclosure just opposite the church. On the memorial are bronze plaques with inscriptions and the names of those lost in the 2 World Wars and the Iraq War. You might recognise this entire area from an episode of the parish notice board a few weeks ago. Even though it's noisy, being so close to the road, it's still quite pretty and well worth a few moments of your time. The parish notice board now displays a TVI card, and right next door we have an old map of Pool. This looks quite a bit different to the current layout of the village. Well, I can guarantee you from this map that Pool doesn't look anything like this now. It's really small here, as you can see. Just basically all centred around the church area where we are here, a few other odds and ends around it. These days it extends all the way down here It's very much built up. There are still some of these landmarks about though, and a lot of them we're still going to see, including Pool Bridge, by the way, which is where we're heading in a moment. That goes over the River Wharfe. The bridge, you can see, look, was built in 1753 to replace a ferry. Now, where have we heard that before? Virtually every river we've ever come across used to have ferries across. It's amazing how many don't exist anymore. And to the immediate west, there's a mill. Now, there's a paper mill somewhere here. I'm not sure if that's the same mill, in fact. It might be, I'm not sure. But later on, when we've finished the main walk around, I'm driving out here anyway, so we'll see what's there. I'm pretty sure that the paper mill still stands. I think it's called Whiteley's paper mill, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We've got a village to walk around first. Let's go and see what else we can find here. Pool is a decent sized village these days. With a population of over 2,000 people, it kind of needs the amenities it has. Most of them are along the A658 and A659, the two major roads it stands upon. These include a shop which doubles as a post office. Our walking route will end at this point, so we'll get to see this in a bit more detail later, including something very colourful just outside it. This bus was handy because I was literally just about to capture the bus stop. This is the A3 service to Otley. Buses are the only public transport Pool has, although it used to have a railway station. Heading for the River Wharfe, we have a Methodist church next. In 2020, this threw open its doors to a brand new charity shop called the Rainbow Centre, a new hub for the community. So Pool might not be the biggest village in the world, but it is served by a petrol station as well, which you can see here, very close to Pool Bridge. There we go. I won't say much about the price though, but yeah, people do need petrol, and yeah, if you live here, you've got one right on your doorstep. Opposite the petrol station, there's a huge open space which includes a football pitch and a playground, and a vast area called the Riverside Meadow, because the River Wharfe is nearby. This then is the magnificent Pool Bridge, built during the 1700s and later widened in 1815. It carries Main Street, the A658, over the River Wharfe. It's built primarily of sandstone. It has 7 segmental arches, 2 over the river, 2 to the south and 3 to the north. On both sides there's a canted central pier, and the bridge has some very good examples of vermiculated masonry. The bridge is a good starting point to access some of the fabulous walks you can take around this part of Yorkshire, and it's also a good spot for fly fishing because the waters here are quite shallow. Mind you, this part of the wharf has been known to flood before. That's one major advantage of the Riverside Meadow. It provides something of a floodplain, protecting the closest houses. So from Pool Bridge, there's a footpath which runs around the edge of this recreational area, which leads us back into the village. And to be honest with you, when we get to the end of this path and we enter the residential area, there isn't really much to tell you about down there, because I think a lot of this village is purely housing. I don't think there's really much to tell you about as regards like bits of history or quirky little odds and ends. You never know though, I could be wrong. So let's carry on down this footpath and see where it takes us, shall we? The footpath continues along the wharf for a short distance before we come across this bridge, at which point you have a choice to carry on down the river or head back into the village. It's the latter for us. After walking up some steps, we come to a small garden, which by the look of the small boards you can read here is something of a protected area, with lots of information on the local bird life. And now we hit the recreation ground. This is part of some 11 acres of sporting and recreational land. The village hall, which is also here, offers views across the valley towards Almscliffe Crag. I loved this area. This is Pool Cricket Club, who have 2 senior sides and junior teams ranging from under 7s through to the under 17s. They play in the Air and Wharf League and have teams in multiple divisions. Right next to the cricket club is Pool-in-Wharfedale C of E Primary School, literally known as Pool School to the locals. The children here seem to like this area as well, and I have some proof of that. So this is pretty cool. Here we've got a map of the area we've just walked through, and a lot of these illustrations were by the local school children. So we started here at Pool Bridge and I walked alongside the river. That bridge was called Kingfisher Bridge apparently, And then I've gone up the short steps through Harry's Copse. I don't know who Harry is. Number 6. Is there a... No, there's nothing on here which tells me about Harry. I wonder who Harry was. Let me know who Harry was. Then we've walked across here to where the cricket nets are. And then I've just come down the side of the pavilion, the changing rooms there. Cricket ground, which is right in front of me. And I am currently there. And yeah, I love these illustrations. They're great. They're fantastic. Some talented children here in Poole. I like it. I like it a lot. The village hall was built both as a war memorial and a memorial to William Whiteley. At its opening, it was believed to be the largest and most modernly equipped hall of its kind in the country. Now we're heading to the east along the A659, the road which leads to Arthington, an adjoining parish of Leeds. The house behind those trees is the old vicarage. This didn't do it justice, really. So we saw a bus earlier, but I figured I would mention trains a little more. The station Poole used to have closed under the Beeching Acts, but the nearest railway station to Poole these days is only a 5-minute drive away. Well, it would appear I was right. Very residential area this, and it's only going to get even more residential in a moment because I'm about to turn into one of the housing estates and walk around that before heading back to sort of back to where we began. In recent years, the village has rapidly increased in size with the construction of many new homes. The finest example of this would be here on the Chevin Park estate. I love this area too. In the middle of the estate there's a small green with a nice little summer house. I considered stopping for a while in there, but chose to keep walking. It's a beautiful area of Poole, this. Top draw. Well, as housing estates go, I'm pleased I walked through this one. This is beautiful. It's clearly new. It's not been here for years and years and years, but it's yeah, certainly been well thought out, well built. It's quite nice. I'd love to live here. I really would. Nearby to Poole is Poole Bank, which is a steep hill. You approach the village from the south by coming down that hill, which is to the left here. It's a 12% gradient, and I'm so glad I didn't have to walk up it. This next road leads to Poole Hall, a 16th century farmhouse, later extended at intervals and divided. It has both stables and a coach house, which have been converted and incorporated into the house. After making our way through Chapel Hill Road, another area of new properties, we come to the White Hart. This is Poole's one and only pub, recently refurbished, and it features a chic bar area. The pub is also a restaurant, and it's one of the most well respected of its type in the Otley area. Given its location, travellers often stop here, as do hikers and ramblers walking along the River Wharfe. Now I've got to try and get across this road. It's not going to be easy. It's very, very busy. It's worth doing though, because wait for this lorry to disappear. On the other side you can see a phone box and a little circular, semicircular garden, and I can also see a set of village stocks. So it's worth getting across this road. I'm just going to wait for a break in the traffic. I could be a while. I think the last time we saw an old red phone box used as a book exchange in Leeds was way back in Linton, within the boundaries of Collingham. Here in Poole, I reckon this is a pretty decent effort. This attractive garden area is known as Stocks Hill, and I wonder why. These are the stocks, which are unusually tall. Similar tall stocks were used as whipping posts, so it's possible that these were too. And I can't resist these things anymore. Every time I see one I have to get them in now. It's an old Yorkshire West Riding roundel sign, as Poole used to be within the boundaries of the old West Riding. Okay, we're about all the way around. That brings us out here at the shop, which we saw earlier. And I don't know whether you noticed this, by the way, earlier. Nice bit of yarn bombing here for the Jubilee. How about that? That's top quality, that. I like it. There's also another little notice board here for the WI. 1946 to 96. And another little free library. That's very colourful. I would suggest that Poole is a very colourful place, actually. All things considered, it seems to be. It certainly does well for itself, doesn't it? It's the kind of place that you wouldn't mind living. And I mean, I've been quite taken with a few areas of this village, to be honest with you. The only thing that I think brings it down a little bit would be all this traffic noise, because it's clearly on a major road, and it's like the village that never sleeps, isn't it? There we go. Anyway, time you guys had today's picture bit. Okay, so we're back here at the War Memorial, which we saw earlier. Now, there's one more thing to go and see here in Poole, and that's the mill that I promised you we would have a look at earlier. So let's go hop in the car and head to the west and see if we can find it. Perhaps the largest industry in this part of Leeds was historically to do with different types of mill. Originally, fulling mills operated in this area, but they were washed away by a flood in 1653. On the Otley road, as you leave Poole to the west, you come across an area which has lots of old mill buildings. Martin Mills is so named as they began manufacturing knitwear from a factory on Martin Street in Skipton before specialising in woven textiles. In 1996 they moved here, an area famed for that since the 18th century. Over the road is the site of a historic paper mill founded in 1886. Owned by Wideman Whiteley, it was originally a producer of press boards for the local textile industry. The quality of the paper fueled a phenomenal growth in production in the 1920s. You can't get away from the fact that even though these are imposing structures, they remain industrial buildings with storied pasts, certainly far too much of a past to fit into one episode. And it's outside the mills here in Poole where I've decided to wrap up the Poole episode. Time for me to move on to my next one here in Leeds. Now the next one has something very interesting underneath the ground, and I don't know whether I'll be able to get a few shots of it. It might be possible, it might not. I'll have to find out when I get there. And you can find out how successful I was next week if you stick around and watch the next Leeds episode coming your way next Thursday. But for now, this has been the parish of Poole, or if you will, Pool-in-Wharfedale in the City of Leeds, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.